I think we'll start and expect people to join us as we start. So, hi everybody, and thank you for making the time to be here. And the purpose of this meeting, of this Zoom meeting, is to kind of review some of the documents, some of the main documents that we're creating through the strategic planning process. They were all sent to you, or they were linked. There were links to all those documents in the invite to this event and to the community conversation event on the 20th. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of do a little bit of guided reading into those documents as preparation for the community conversation. And Maya put the link in the chat so that you can access all those documents as well, either now or afterwards, and just have it for your convenience. So just before I start, so what I plan to do is kind of read through these documents together with you. I've prepared a flow, but you're more than happy to interrupt me and ask questions. And if you feel you want us to concentrate on one or another particular thing. Before I start, I'll open it up for questions and comments, kind of hear what you're expecting to get from this meeting. So maybe I can be, more effective if I know a little bit what you're in for. So anyone?
Just here to learn.
Okay. All right, then, and again,
I think I'd also like to hear about how decisions are made, major decisions affecting the community. How does that get done?
okay, right, great. So I will start reviewing the materials, and then please feel free to, I will share my screen with you so that we can review materials together. And please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so we will start. I would like to start by using the full deck, and all of these documents are at your disposal. So this is the full deck that was developed by our consultants, the Rozov Consulting Group, and was presented in a 90-minute video presentation that is also available, that summarizes many of the facts about this study, the findings. But I would like to start with kind of saying something about the process. Who did we hear from, and how did we do that? And so basically, what characterizes this study is that we really used multiple ways to try and gather information from the community about the needs, the attitudes, what people wanted, what they were happy with, what they were satisfied with, and how they would like to be engaged in Jewish life in Southern California. That was the purpose of the study. This was not a demographic study, okay? It was a needs assessment or a market assessment study. And so what we first did, or our consultants of course did, and we supported them, was to have conversation with some stakeholders. And so these conversations were held in June of 2019. And there were groups of 5 to 7 people of different profiles. And you can see here, there were agency and synagogue professionals, agency and synagogue volunteers, young leaders, and major donors. After having these conversations with stakeholder groups, we had focus groups. Our consultants, who are specialists in evaluation, had focus groups with 10 different demographics that you can see laid out here. Families with children, teens, college students, retirees, boomers, LGBTQ, newcomers, outlying areas, and young adults with no children. We were trying to scope out the various types of community members, both by generation, but also by other types of characteristics. And so in total, there were about 150 conversations. They're not individual, but group conversations. Some of them were actually individual conversations. But so we had information from 150 individuals, informants, and that helped our consultants to create a survey. That survey was distributed far and wide in many ways, both by sending specific emails. Oh, is somebody wanting somebody on the chat? I can't see the chat, so if any of you
Yes,
wanna say-
Aviva, you do have a question in the chat. The question was, how were those folks chosen?
Okay, so Maya, you were actually part of that process. You want to talk about that for a bit?
I will defer to you, Aviva.
Okay. So the whole study and the whole process was actually supported by a steering committee. That's an important thing to say. The steering committee consisted of both lay leaders and professionals from the Federation and Foundation. And at these initial stages, we also consulted with a community roundtable. So we created lists, long, complicated lists that Maya did a lot of work cleaning and removing duplicates and making sure we have representation of the different stakeholders and demographics. We asked the synagogues to send us lists. We asked our agencies to send us lists. And based on input from various sources, we then created lists and invited many people for the recruitment efforts for these both stakeholders and special interest focus groups were immense. And there were many emails, follow-ups, and phone calls made. It wasn't easy. Most of the focus groups ended up having between 5 and 10 participants. And the stakeholders conversations also had between 10 to 12 participants. And so we were trying to be as inclusive as we can, both in collecting information about potential participants and then inviting people from different parts of the community, only for these conversations. With the survey itself, we really, and I'm pretty new to this community, and I've been involved in many different studies in my experience as a researcher and evaluator, and I can tell you that the efforts that were made here to really reach as many members of the community from different generations, from different interest groups, from different geographic areas were really commendable. And we did receive 1,807 valid responses, as you can see. And you can see that the dissemination of the survey happened in two ways. One is direct emails to contact list, and the other is a media campaign so that people can forward a link of the survey to people that are not on our lists. I can tell you that 1,807 valid responses is an amazing number. It really allowed our consultants to do in-depth statistic analysis. I can tell you the community is much larger than Tucson, often base their surveys on 500 to 600 respondents. And so from a methodological standpoint, this is a very rigorous data collection effort that then means that the data that we have is of very high quality in terms of its ability to represent the community and its different parts. Other questions that I did not see? Maya?
That's the only question that was in there. The only thing that I would add on, that was an excellent summary. The only thing that I would say is every single time that we talked to someone, we said, do you know someone that we don't? Please include them. we were trying to reach people that were not a part of the inner circle. We have access to the lists that are part of the inner circle, so we were sending to them, and we were trying to broaden. So really, we did everything we could to be inclusive, both in those initial conversations and in the survey.
Right, and you can see the results of those efforts actually in the demographics of the respondents to the survey. And what you can see here is basically a representation of the survey respondents by different categories, and also in comparison to the Jewish American Population Project's projections for the Tucson Jewish population. So what you can see here is that we have, a pretty good ratio of gender representation of the various generations. So in a way, it represents the demographic of the Jewish Tucson community, but we have members of the different groups. We have millennials. 237 millennials really allows you to do a pretty good analysis of millennials. When you have groups this size, it really allows for pretty in-depth statistical analysis, and you can see, and also here you can see that we have people that come from family with one Jewish parent and families with two Jewish parents. We have families with kids of different ages. We have a spread of geographic areas. So we have Tucson, and we have Oro Valley, and we do have some Green Valley, and we did do analysis based on those geographic categories. We have people of different socioeconomic status, so that we also get an understanding of where people of people of different financial needs and abilities, and of different denominations. And so really what we can say at the outset about this is that we have a pretty rigorous data set that has both qualitative and quantitative measures, as well as enough responses so that we can have pretty robust conclusions. And so that's kind of a piece about the process and the methodology. I will then give you a minute for questions about that, and then I'll talk about findings. Okay, so let's go to findings, and I jumped to the executive summary document that was publicized in all the ways that we know how to do, via community emails, on the website, in the different conversations we have, and now you also have access to it. These are the main kind of the high level notable findings, and they are, as you can see them here. So, and I think most of them are really very good news. Compared to the general trends, the numbers are pretty astounding in terms of the interest that people have in Jewish life in Tucson. So you can see here that about 40% of the respondents would like to participate more in Jewish activities. I think that the interesting numbers here, that 59% of millennials, 59% of millennials would like to participate more. We tend to say that they're not interested and they opt out. Well, this is not what we found here. So really, LGBTQ, people of LGBTQ individuals also are very interested. Most of the groups were 40% and higher. The respondents from those groups were highly interested in being more active in Jewish activities in Southern Arizona. And the same goes for interest in expanding people's Jewish networks. Again, the millennials, the newcomers, high interest among these groups. 80% of respondents who had kids or grandkids said they were interested to raise their kids, to give their kids a Jewish education culturally and religiously. That's an astounding number. We had very high interest across generations in Jewish holiday celebration, in learning about Jewish learning and travel to Israel. 50% and higher interest rates. And again, and an interesting, not unique, but interesting finding about the fact that many people find the social justice and community service activity as the main way to exercise or exhibit, extend their Jewish values. And so that will then, you'll see very quickly, inform some of the recommendations. The Tikkun Olam piece, again, is not unique to the Tucson Jewish community, but very pronounced here. That people are interested in social justice and community service activities organized by Jewish community as a way to strengthen their Jewish identity. And the last piece I will talk about here is this notable interest in religious/spiritual expression of Jewishness in alternative ways and outside of synagogues. So people, and I will not go through the whole detailed deck in depth, but I will show you a little bit of where we came up with this finding, which is very, very central to what you will hear next in terms of recommendations. There is high interest in the Tucson Jewish community to participate in Jewish activities, to celebrate holidays, to do community service and tikkun olam, to participate in celebrations, in Jewish holiday celebrations. So this is the good news, okay? The way or the findings about how we can improve or grow indicate, and I'm jumping back to the full deck, and I'm going to go to slide number 29. So we do know what people want. The other thing we wanted to know is how people feel about current offerings in the community. We know that they want more Jewish activity, expand their Jewish network. They want to celebrate holidays, learn and travel to Israel. They want to do Jewishly more. The other thing we wanted to know is really, what do they think about the current offerings in the community? And so I would like to talk a little bit about that. So we asked the participants in the quality and variety of Jewish activities and events. And so I think what we will find in the next slides here, compared to the slides we showed before, is what I would like to call the opportunity gap. Basically, what we find that I would say the main finding of the survey and all the other data collection efforts is that there is an opportunity gap. And the gap and the opportunity is between the what people want and how satisfied they are with the current offerings. So they do want a lot. They want more. They want to participate, but they're not happy with the current offerings. That creates an opportunity for us as a community to develop new programs, new ways to engage people that are interested in participating. And so I want to show you a little bit about, where the gap between the high interest and the low satisfaction, what it looks like. So the overall satisfaction from the quality and variety of Jewish activities and events is relatively low. It's overall, the very satisfied is about 19% of the variety and about 20% around the quality. You can see that there's a pretty big satisfied category, but we want to be excellent. We don't want people to be just satisfied. We want them to be very satisfied. And so you can see also an interesting trend here, that the satisfaction grows, or the percent of people that are very satisfied increases by generation, where the younger generations, and especially the millennials, look at the millennials, they had very high interests, but very low levels of satisfaction. When you then compare them to the boomers and to the older seniors, you can see that it's an almost threefold of satisfaction. And you can see other groups here. young adults, families with kids, low SOS, and newcomers, low levels of satisfaction from current offerings, coupled with high levels of interest in participating more. We asked specifically about synagogues, in addition to asking about educational activities. And the satisfaction here also is low. We asked people that are members of synagogues, and they are not very satisfied. And you can see here again the same trend. The satisfaction increases as we see that between the different generations. But when we look at the different interest group, overall the satisfaction is pretty low. There are some quotes here. I invite you to look at the full deck. It really specifies the different organizations and the satisfaction rates. I will stop here at this slide again. This is delving in a little bit into specific educational offerings. And while you see that the satisfaction with PJ Library is high, more than half of the respondents who have children or grandchildren are very satisfied with PJ Library. 40% are satisfied with the preschool, while only 17 and 19% are very satisfied with our day school and the religious schools. Again, I would say here it's an opportunity gap. There is interest. At the same time, there is low satisfaction, which means we need to think about new ways, other ways, updated ways, creative ways to engage people that want to be engaged, but currently can't really find what they're looking for. I will jump from here to talk about some of the subgroups, which we did an analysis of. I will not delve into it, just to say we should really look at Gen Z and the millennials. This is the future. And what you will see here is that they are interested in celebrating, and they are interested in traveling, and they are interested in expanding those social networks, but they're not satisfied with current offerings. You will see these, in some of the other groups. I invite you to, again, after this meeting, to delve into the presentation. And if you have questions afterwards, I'm happy to answer them as well. Is there a question in the chat?
There's no question. That's just the noise of someone coming in.
Oh, coming in. Okay, great. So I will finish this part by saying, as we were summarizing our findings, what the data, quote unquote, said to us is, here are some things you would want to explore based on the findings. And so places and spaces that people are happy with are places where we could think about having more activity. So high satisfaction with the Jewish History Museum, with the JCC. Maybe that's a place where people, would like to have more Jewish experiences. Reimagine Jewish educational offerings. As we said before, there is interest coupled with low satisfaction. The issue of synagogues calls for more thought. So consolidation, collaboration across synagogues and with other organizations is something that the data calls for. Infrastructure to build relationships with newcomers and with other people on their Jewish journeys. Social fabric. We heard from some of our respondents that the community sometimes feels cliquish, that it's hard to make new friends and connections. And so that's something we should explore and find ways to make people feel more welcome. And again, the experimentation with innovative initiatives to create more opportunities around spirituality and social justice. So that was the initial presentation that was made to the community. Following this presentation, there were about, I would say, 6 or 7 meaning-making meetings, where again, many people were invited, people from the boards, from agency and synagogue boards, other lay leaders in the community were invited to participate in conversations around, so what do we need to do now? What does this data tell us about how do we plan for the future of the Jewish community in Southern Arizona? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so we can talk. And I will open it to questions, and then I will continue.